Absolutely thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you now.
Thank you, Shama. Thank you for this awesome welcome. Hello, everyone who's in the audience. I'd like all of you to just say hi or say yes if you hear me in the chat. Let's start moving. Till then, I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll take it from there.
Yes, I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Yep, good to go.
Okay.
Come on, guys, say hello to Sneha.
All right. So are we seeing a lot of hellos and yeses in the chat window? All right. So let's start with the session for today. Before we get into the details of what we're going to talk about, let's first talk about what all I've promised you all in my description beforehand. So today I'm going to focus on talking about the UCD process and how I utilize it. After which we're going to talk about getting a deeper insight on understanding data, information, and how to create insights which are meaningful and actionable from it. Eventually, I'm also coming to a place where I want to share a method that I use, which does not require a lot of hard work behind the scene, but it requires a lot of understanding and empathy for the business and the user. So, this is what we're going to go through today. To start with, I am going to share the first screen, which is basically Googling design processes. I just wrote design processes in my window and I went to the image section and there are tons and tons. And I took a picture of the two folds of design processes. And while I was looking at all of these processes, what I realized was each of them make life more complex than simple. And as designers, our job is to actually make things simple. So I want to simplify this process and share my insight on how I look at these design processes. Over the last 10 years, I've seen multiple organizations following different processes, and I've realized that there's one pattern to all of this. And exactly that is what I want to share with you all. The process as I understand it. This is what I look at when I have to design any solution. It is data-driven design. What data really means over here is information in a holistic context. So whenever we start on any project, any exercise that we've been given, so you could be in the industry, you could be in the college, the first thing you need to do is start collecting a lot of information. And to start with, what is the best way of collecting information? I'm going to take an example over here. Imagine you guys were planning a party. And at last minute, you got to notice that, okay, you know what? You've got 10 friends coming and their spouses and, they're also bringing some other friends. And you're just like, okay, I've got 2 hours and I have to organize a party. How do you start? I think the first thing you would do is once you know how many people are there, you're going to start wondering about what snacks, what food, how many are vegetarians, how many are non-vegetarians, how many drink, how many don't, what would people prefer drinking to, how much seating arrangement do you have, then do you want to create some more space in the house, to a lot of these different questions that you would have. Data collection is this part. Once you've analyzed once you've collected all of this data, you start understanding the deeper meaning of it. And you say, okay, you know what? I've got 10 vegetarians and I've got 12 non-vegetarians. Non-vegetarians also eat vegetarian snacks. So now let me make a list of how much food do I really need to order. And that's your analysis of this entire thing. And you'd also pick up your drinks and seating arrangement, etc. So this is how you've analyzed the situation. And then finally, when you've gotten everything ready, you start placing it. Then you'll see, how much of your crockery is out, how much of it is clean, etc. And you start putting all of this together to create the perfect experience for you and your friends for that one evening. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing with data-driven design. It's an experience that you create by by collecting the right information, understanding its depth, understanding what it really means, and then informing your entire design to create a better experience. I'm going to go to all of these circles in a lot more detail in the rest of my presentation. So I'm going to just leave it at this high level and move on to what each of these steps really means and how can you go about it. All right, this is my favorite, and I call it step 0. What do you do before you even start? And I feel a lot of times this is the one step we really miss. It's being prepared for the worst. It's being prepared for the unknown. It's being prepared for what could come your way. It's like a first aid kit. It should just be there. You need it, you use it. So, over here in step 0, the idea is to help you prepare before any conversation. So, whenever you get a project, and I'm talking both in context to the industry and to the academia, you get a project and you need to speak to people about it. It's either an internal customer, an external customer, a faculty member, a peer in the group that you're, in your college. In any of these cases, you got to prepare for that conversation. What does preparation really mean in this context? Preparation means desk research. For any project, if before you start, you can read up and understand what all it takes to build that project or build that product or that design idea or that thought, it's going to help a lot. So it could be an example of a digital product. It could also be a system. It could be a service. It could be a physical product. In each of these 3 pillars will always help you have a lot more context to talk about when you go for that meeting. It'll also help you build a relationship with the team you're going to be talking to. So when we come to domain, as designers, it's said that, we can switch from any domain at any point. It's said because we are people who look at everything from a third perspective, learn about it, evaluate it, and without a bias, provide solutions. So in context to the domain, say for example, we were designing something for hospitality. I would say that go ahead and understand what is hospitality all about. What is this domain like? What is the ecosystem? What are the different challenges and opportunities in this domain? And when I say look at challenges and opportunities, see it not just for today. See it, what are the challenges and opportunities seeming to be there in the next 2 years? Look at it from a perspective of demographics in terms of which geography you're located in, or what sort of people you're going to be designing the product for. Then what are other people doing in terms of competition? Start understanding all these nuances of the domain. When you understand this, you'll have a stronger grip about the project in the first place. Your brain is going to be able to understand, assimilate, and then be able to also create a pattern which will come and inform the design later. And you will be able to do this in a stronger way. Also, it helps breaking the ice with who you're speaking to. So imagine you walk into a boardroom and you have to talk to a bunch of customers, and you could be the senior most person in that room or the junior most person in that room, but you will know enough terms and enough value about that domain to actually have a conversation. Even read about the news. Find out what is the news, what's hot in this domain today. These are great icebreakers for any conversation. The next bit that I would suggest you to look at is technology. In today's time, any designer who does not understand or value technology to its holistic sense may actually be missing out on creating more compelling experiences. So a lot of times I spend time with the development team just understanding what are they thinking and sharing my ideas. So a lot of times what happens is I'll create a really crazy looking visual for some dashboard, and I'll be like, okay, you know what, this is uber cool. And they'll be like, you know what, Sneha, we've come up with this whole new plugin we saw, and it's actually, exactly what you want to achieve, but it looks much nicer. Do you want to have a look at it? And that's where the technology handshake really helps. But to be able to do that, you need to understand technology. So now, since you've understood domain, see what are the technologies that are growing in that domain right now. Which technologies are emerging right now? Say, for example, in hospitality, right now, a touchless experience is priority because of the COVID environment, right? A lot of people are interested in seeing what does it mean for them. And there are so many companies building products for this context. But now imagine it's touchless today. What's next? What technologies are coming up that's going to change this domain completely? Read about it. It's just good to know. Finally, coming to the part of experience, which is the most important, the users. In context of the users, I would say, read a lot of different blogs. If you have an idea about the users and the personas already, read about them. See what are their current aspirations, challenges, motivations. A lot of times, what I do is if I know what is the role of the user, sometimes I even go on LinkedIn and find people with that role and read about their role description and what are they actually working at, or what are they trying to build, even in their current jobs with the role that they've been given. So a lot of times I spend a lot of time doing that as well. With desk research done, there is one very important thing that you all need to do. You're going to see a few slides which just show up like this, and I'm just calling it Google this up because I want you to find out a little more about the concept. The art of Googling is a very, very interesting concept. And if you want to ace desk research, this is your key fundamental. It is your key to unlock a whole world of data and information that's always going to help you. One, understand, and second, build better products, experiences. And you're just going to always feel so much more stronger when you present to somebody else. There's going to be so much more trust between you and your stakeholders, customers, because you're going to be as involved as they are in their product. So this is my step zero where I love to prepare and I want to spend a lot of time with. So again, these things seem like it take a lot of time. However, they don't. If you learn the art of Googling. If after this session you still don't find the right answer to it and you feel you still want to catch up, you can hit me up on LinkedIn and I will still help you learn more about it. Now coming to step one after step zero. So in step one of the most important things is mapping business and the users. Now here is where I feel that every individual needs to ask a bunch of questions to validate what we've learned. So of course, we've done a lot of desk research. We've understood some high level concepts. Now we come and meet the customer. How do we prep for meeting the customer? At that point, these are the 5 things that you must ask. Why, what, for whom, where, and in which form. I've got a bunch of questions listed down here. If you want to take a screenshot, go for it. But these questions are always going to be your starting point to one, help the customer start thinking, because that's where the customer is going to be wondering, what do I answer this with? So the first question that I put in here is, why does the customer even need this design effort? Usually when I start with this and I ask, why are you building this? The very few people I've met who've had a very strong vision of what they're building, especially in innovation projects, because over there, they're excited and they want to build something fun. They want to build something amazing. And they're very dreamy about it. And they're looking forward that you're going to be able to do that for them. But overall, it is not as simple. So how do you get that information from them? You have to pull it out from them. So for that, all these questions really help out. So go ahead and spend a lot of time in asking these, understanding the ecosystem, understanding personas, what are the different touch points in this entire experience. Get a holistic view of what are they really wanting to build. Don't jump the gun and just start on something. So start mapping your business and your users. And this is exactly the starting point for it. Once you're done with this, we're done with step 0 and we're done with step 1. There has to be some outcome, right? Like it's all intangible knowledge in your heads right now. So how do we use this intangible knowledge and make it tangible so that people can actually look at it, react, respond, and co-create and collaborate with you? So for that, there is another thing that we do. Take all this amazing data we've collected, dump it in a PPT or whatever format you're comfortable with. I love PPT, so I dump it in a PPT, analyze it, spend some time picking what is important, weeding out what's not required, because we read a lot, right? And one of the biggest issues with desk research is we don't know when to stop. So be very cognizant about it and learn how to converge and diverge in context of how much do you want to read and then how much deeper you want to go. So look at the width and the depth of every subject you read about and then start putting what is important in context to your project, because now you've had a conversation with the stakeholders, you've understood what do they need, you've got some amount of desk research, you've got enough amount of stakeholder understanding, you've combined both these things, put together all of this in a document and present it. Now what does that document really consist of? So when you do all of this work, there has to be something that goes into that presentation. Now all these bullet points is what is going to go into the presentation. Write on a nice background of the project, which is the first question that you'd ask: why are we even building this product? So maybe the answer to it was that our system is extremely old, it's ancient, and we want to revamp it, redesign it, and we want our customers to have a better experience. Write that down. That's where you started. Then you got business goals and objectives. The reason for why they want to do this and what do they want to achieve from it is your business goals. Everything that is measurable and is going to be tangible growth for them as a business is their goal. And the tasks that you do or the activities that you do to achieve those are objectives. They're inversely proportional. So they may have they may have some sort of a connection at some points, and you may feel that they're connected. And one business goal could have multiple objectives. So go ahead and try and define that further. Find out what's the vision of the business. Spend a lot of time writing that down with them. Spend some time putting down the product goals. Product goals are basically nothing but anything that is saying what the product is going to be marketed with. What is that unique selling proposition of the product that you're marketing the product with? Then write down the design goals. As design, and look at design as almost like a person. If design was a human being, what is it that design would want to achieve by creating this product? Then coming to user profiles and personas, at this point, you may have maybe not something 100% concrete, but at least like a starting point, put that together. And I'm going to cover a lot more about personas later, so I'm not going to get into the deeper bits of it. Do a competitive analysis. If it's a redesign project, do something called an expert review. And then finally, of course, if your project allows and you have the option, try and do some user research. It could be one-on-one interviews, it could be surveys, it could be focus groups. Depending on what the organization or the company you're working with or the project you're doing with allows, and what is the bandwidth with which you started out. If you don't have an option to access users, at least try and get to speak to an SME who has worked in the same space and also has stories to share with you, and ask them those questions. This document that you've started creating, believe it to be something that's going to be live and kicking forever. It's not something that you can create once and kill it and you go on with the rest of your project. This is something you should keep updating every week, where you find something new while you're talking to the customer and you just add to it. And that's how this document is almost like alive. So think about it from that perspective. One of the most important benefits of putting this document together is the fact that since it's tangible and people can look at all of this information that you've sort of documented and dumped into a PPT, they'll be able to see something tangible. When they see something tangible, they're going to either respond or react. Both is great for us as designers, because at some point they'll end up sharing a story. So if they say, what, this doesn't work at all, and this is rubbish, and this is horrible, that's okay. Ask them why. And when you genuinely ask them why, they're going to share stories with you and say, what, you've not gotten it at all. Let me tell you what the story is, why this user is like this, or let me tell you what our business goals or objectives are. And that's where the real connection or collaboration starts. After you're done with this phase, please Google up what is an expert review and read up about it. If you don't find the answer, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Coming to step 2, this is where it gets fun. This is where it gets real fun. We're going to talk about conceptual design. Now, this is where you create a detailed task analysis and you put together which are your primary tasks, secondary tasks, your micro interactions, scenarios. You start building a concept model. You start putting your information architecture, your grouping. You build a navigation model around your platform. You create journey maps, empathy maps, different touchpoint analysis. All of this now comes together to help you create high-level wireframes for concepts And these are the concepts that you can now start testing with the stakeholders. It could even be a paper sketch. It necessarily does not have to be a high fidelity wireframe done or a visual design done. It's great. Like I usually sketch out, and trust me, my sketches are terrible. Ask my team. Some of them are also on this call today. I sketch terribly, but I feel it's simpler, it's quick, it's dirty, but it does the job. So do a quick sketch, share with the team, and check what they have to say about it, and move forward very quickly. After this, spend some time defining the visual strategy. A lot of teams have UX designers and visual designers who work separately. A lot of times it's just you as an individual. Either way, start working on that. And finally, of course, conduct usability testing. I'm not going very deep into any of these subjects because I want to pick some of those which you can't Google, and the art of Googling will not help you too much on. I want to talk about the next bit of data analysis. So we've collected all of this information, we've put together tasks, we've done user research, we've got different sort of concept models and things like that. But we still fall short of creating the perfect or the most compelling experiences because we don't analyze data the right way. So I want to talk about how to do this the right way. First and the most important thing, extract and summarize information in the best possible way. I usually use Excel sheets because they work the best for me, where I start dumping data in different columns. And the first round, when I do it, it's just a lot of data. Then I start reorganizing it. Whatever sounds similar, I put them up together in one column. I color code that column. Then, whatever else seems similar, I'll just put in another column. And then I go through that same data again. And I see, okay, even though this looks similar, but the meaning or what I've understood is very different. And that's where I start creating a pattern in my mind and through my Excel sheet as well, where I say, okay, you know what? These are two extremely contradicting points, but they sort of seem very similar. So I'll take an example. Imagine if you had to rent out an apartment. The assumption is that most people want to go online and or meet a broker and look at apartments. But for a different project that I was working on long time ago, I did some research and I found out that my assumption was actually wrong. People want to see pictures, people want to see dimensions, and people don't trust brokers because they feel they've got information that they don't share. And when I digged deeper and why this is, the problem, or why are people less trusting of these brokers or these sites, they said that photography can be a trick. Anything can be made to look larger than it is. Anything can be made to look prettier than actually it is. Like our Instagram filters, so many women look so nice and all these boys look so cute, but are they really that good looking? No. So that's the same thing that happened with these guys. And when that happened, most people weren't very sure. So there are a lot of different technologies now which are trying to bridge this gap. Like there are a lot of people who are creating virtual environments to be able to feel space, feel depth, and a lot of people are spending time on AR and VR now to actually close this gap, bridge this distance between people and property, and not having to spend so much time. So this is where you look at my bias, information I collected, and finally understanding why do they not believe. So this is this entire process where you get data, you group, summarize, put it together, see patterns across things, and then you start driving insights. Each insight is basically the answer to a multiple pieces together, and you have to ask the question why again. And with every piece of information that you've collected and you ask why, it just seems to help you have at least 5 to 10 insights, not maybe more. Any of the projects I worked on, actually till now, I haven't had more than like 6, 7 insights. I still struggle with it. So I think it's a thing that you learn with practice. And it takes a while to get a knack of it. I'm still learning. Let's talk about what insights really are. And before we get into that, I'm going to talk about what is your true arsenal in this. And when I'm talking about insights or data collection over here, I'm talking about it in context of all the type of data you've collected. It's not just research of user research format. It's the desk research, it's the stakeholder interviews, it's user interviews, or surveys, or whatever you've done, all sort of data that you've collected. Because your overall conceptual design will be a powerful punch, and it'll hit the right notes only if you get your insights right. And that's going to be where the wow comes in. So a lot of times we look at a lot of companies that disrupted the market. They didn't disrupt the market because they did user research. They disrupted the market because they created a pattern between business, technology, and users. They understood what was missing for all the three, and they basically um, matched all these dots, joined them, and took out the best part of it. So, one of the best examples, and I think the most used example, is Uber. Uber disrupted the way we use transportation, the way we look at commuting in a major city. So it happened because they looked at all these three. And that's why I'm spending so much time on trying to talk about how to drive insights and how to utilize them and how to use information to create meaningful, actionable data that actually will help you inform your design. So let's talk about your arsenal. The first thing, I mean, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to talk about the most important ones. I think the most important one is genuinely and empathetically wanting to know the answer to every why that comes into your research. Why did somebody say this? Why did people think about it in a certain way? I think other than that, the only second thing, which is really, really important, at least according to me, is understanding basic human psychology. So read up about what ticks people. And I'm going to share a little secret. I tried at home. I tried with my sister, my mom, and my dad, and my husband, where I try different experiments. What bothers them? What doesn't bother them? And I've learned a lot about it from it. But reading it and applying it a little bit and just having fun with it is actually quite interesting. And you see the results real time. So, what persuades my younger sister versus what persuades my dad or my mom is very, very different. So, it's a lot of fun to find out about this. I would say just, this is one of the key things to be able to validate your insights and to be able to get the right information out of it and make sense of it. Now, coming to what insights really are, it's understanding the underlying human behavior and the motivators of that behavior. It's just to get to the core of something. So if we look at I'm sure a lot of you, when you were younger, would have seen in your science books, the earth is this round circle, and we cut a little pie out of it, and then you've got like a yellow circle inside it, and a brown one, and a green one, and things like that. So that's basically showing you how many levels or layers are there in the earth. That core in the center is what we also got to get to. And as designers, that's something which is quite tough, but it's the most fun part to do. Also, the second bit, which is extremely important, is whatever information changes our belief about the users is extremely important. Because invariably, as designers or as human beings, let's not even be so harsh on ourselves. As human beings, a lot of times we hold biases which we don't even know because they're so subconscious. And this is where we need to pick out everything that challenges our beliefs about the users and also revalidate or analyze that information. All right, now we've done a lot of data, and you guys must be already saying I'm only talking about data. So I want to talk about how do you really create concept direction. So an insight gives you multiple ideas. So for example, when we spoke about looking for a home, and the insight came out to be that people feel that photography is tricky and brokers are not trustworthy because they want larger commissions. There are multiple ideas that start coming. Each idea has its pros and cons. And when we're looking at each idea, we can start taking different paths. So say, for example, we look at one idea of AR, VR. The path we could take was, one could be that, oh, we say, you know what, we're going to give you a virtual tour of the house. And we're going to try and create a sense of depth and distance and height by showing you objects which look almost real as you. So that could be one way of looking at it. What could be another way of doing this would be, we say that, oh, you know what, we will create a plan for you which you look at online, and you don't need to be an architect, but it's live, sort of an architect drawing. You click on any line, it tells you how far it is and things like that, and it just becomes a live diagram of sort, and it's interactive and it's fun. So you can see the whole model of the place, and you can see a floor plan. It'll show you how much is the carpet area, what is the unused area from it, and things like that. Now, while we have to, and for right now, let's say these are the two paths that we've taken on the same insight and the idea that we picked from the one insight, we have to now make a choice. Which of these solves the problem of the business and also solves the problem of the users? So we will look at, is the business ready to invest X amount of money? And is their goal to convert users, or is their goal to increase their sales through different mediums? So what are some of their, sorry about that, one of my screens was very excited. All right. So yeah, so what is their actual goal as a business? What do they want to achieve? So remember, in the initial part of all our work that we've done, we spoke about business goals. So those business goals now and that vision, does it still align to this idea? Or the motivations or problems or challenges or pain points the users had, which we put in the persona, are they still matching together? And is the solution really going to work? Now here is where then we decide which path to pick and move forward. Like every time, I'm going to give you one more piece to Google up. Concept models. It's a very fun thing. Read about it. It'll help you understand how to put all of this data into different concepts and create multiple competing concepts instead of just creating different layouts for the same screen or for the same design that you've been working on. All right, with this, I'm going to move to the next step. And before I do that, can I see people say hi on chat again and tell me how they're doing? So guys, how are you all doing? Just a hi, yes, good, okay, would be great. All right, so I can see some people. All right, good. All right, now let's move to the next step, which is step 3. And that is about design execution. I don't want to make it very complex. That's why I divided this into 3 simple steps of what you need to do. Design execution is the one where you need to spend most amount of your time. So whenever you start on anything, you start with a lot of excitement and passion to build it. But that excitement and passion needs to be there till the last moment. It cannot dry out in between. It's almost like driving a high-speed motorcycle and running out of nitro fuel at the last minute. It's exactly that emotion. So at this moment as well, I would suggest that have the same excitement and the same empathy and love for creation. So over here, you start creating your high fidelity mockups, you start testing those designs. You've already spent some time with stakeholders and users, you build these prototypes, and you again, validate these out quickly, start detailing each of these elements. So this is where really you create micro interactions. You spend a lot of time on detailing out what is the messaging, the content, the presentation style, if it's really looking nice in terms of the visual hierarchy, if it's making sense in terms of the overall presentation of it and how it's speaking to the user, if it's all coming really together or not. This is the time to spend in chiseling every single pixel. Here is also the time, actually, I would say do the tech handshake long before, like do it in the first phase itself. But in a lot of teams, that doesn't happen. So at least at this point, start talking to the tech guys. Show them your concepts, show them the high fidelity mockups and prototypes that you're building. So they can also start telling you and talk to you about what's doable, what's not doable, what are they going to be able to build right now, what they need more time for, and things like that. This piece, I feel, is still much simpler, because once you've gotten the heart of the concept in control, it's very, very simple to build the rest of the pieces. And with that, I'm going to move to the fun part of it, which is how to work in different environments. Now we've built this entire methodology, and I've spoke to you about so many different things, but how do you really use it? Right now, I'm in a services company, and over here, we use it very differently. But if I had to work, and I worked in a product company before where the process was very different. And then I've also done some freelance work at some point. So that was very, very different. So all of these different environments that we work in are actually very different for us ourselves. So let's start with working with product teams. In a product team, everybody is working towards one single direction and one unilateral goal of the organization, and they're building different pieces of it. So while they're building different pieces of it, there are multiple people who are holding the thread of keeping everything connected, and everybody is responsible and has ownership of a small piece. So you're putting all these building blocks together and you're putting your stuff together. Now, in this context, a lot of times what happens is that you may not start from the start. You may start from somewhere in between. And when that happens, don't freak out. It's okay. Understand all the information that they have. Spend some time playing around with the product, understand what they're trying to build. In your own sense, still try and create some sort of format for yourself where you have some data which helps you connect to the product. And that's the most important piece. So everything that we spoke about till now, right? The sort of data we collected, how we pulled it into a concept, and how we have to finally, execute the design. I've done this on a project which takes about a week, and done this entire process for a project for about a week, and the output is also the same. This process can also be applied to a project that takes 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. It depends on how much depth do you really need to go into, and how quick you are in picking up patterns and learning the art of Googling, creating concept models. And what was the third one? Sheesh, I forgot. So if any of you remember, put that in. I will send a special thank you later. The next bit we're going to talk about is services businesses. So since I come from that setup, at least for right now, this process needs to be changed, adapted, renewed with every single project. Because the team composition changes, the customer changes, expectation changes, timelines change. So you need to sort of prioritize what information do you need the most, and move forward with that. Teams with multiple designers. So here is where the fun bit starts, because we all learn different schools of thoughts about design. So over here, what happens is somebody is very excited about some piece, and somebody is excited about another piece, and somebody else is excited about another piece. Over here as well, to bring consensus, it makes a lot of sense to document it and put it together. The team also starts trusting you, because you're the only one who's not riding on a horse and saying that I'm going to do my own thing and they're doing their own thing, or everybody is doing one piece, but it's not connecting back together. So you could be that binder. You could be that joint who builds everybody together, be that magnet, and get everybody together on the same page and document all of the data. And then see how you all together can do the exercise of evaluating all the information that you've collected, summarize it, and incite it. Teams with only techies, this one's fun. Here, you may find it tough to get a buy-in into your process. So the best way to do it is from day one, ask them what they're doing with technology and parallelly build the document. While you build the document parallelly, then give it to them and ask them, you know what, these are my thoughts. Let's also bring in an SME and talk about it. If they don't have an SME, it's okay. Ask them, what do they think about it? Let them say a lot of stuff that they need to. And a lot of times, at least 99 times out of 100, when the entire team looks at the document together, their perspective also changes, and they actually give you valuable insights, which you would later be fighting about, because you'd be like, hey, no, but I want this way. And they'd be like, no, I don't want to do it this way. So it's just that early buy-in into the team. And teams where you're invisible because you're new, or you're like, doing a very small piece of the product, or I don't know, whatever the situation could be. Again, put all of this together, present it to the team, build that rapport, build that relationship, start sharing what you think about everything. So this will give you a very streamlined way of moving forward with what your thought is. And it necessarily does not mean that only use the bullet points that I've put down. There are a lot more things to put into it. And I would say that with your experience, you will keep growing your own process. So this works for me right now, but maybe 2 years from now, I may give another webinar or a session like this where I say, hey, you know what? Scratch that. I have something new to say. So it's going to keep evolving, and you keep evolving your own process with your own experiences and see how and what works for you. All right, finally coming to the crux of the conversation, my mantra. Now, this one is for everybody who feels that, the entire process is too much, you don't have too much time, and you need to really move forward. And in that context, I love one solid thing that I believe in: the brain and the heart concept. How many of you have seen these cartoons with the brain and the heart? Just say yes in the chat. That's nice. I feel a little motivated when you all talk. So how many of you seen the brain and the heart concept? All right, some people responded. Feels nice. Thank you. I love this because I feel it's so connected to design. While we're designing, we need both. We need our logic side, our brain, and our analysis and all of that, and our planning and our rigor in getting things done. And then we also have to be extremely empathetic, and we want to be so hopeful, and we want to be so dreamy-eyed about what we're going to build, and that's the heart. And now, how do we use this same thing in design? I believe that user tasks are the brain of the design, and personas are the heart. So even if you started from the middle, at least for the module or the screen you're designing, understand what are the tasks of the user. Tasks are nothing but the actions that people do to achieve a certain goal that they have. And personas are basically an identity we create for a larger section of the society, or a larger group of audience that we're creating this for, addressing what are their pain points, challenges, needs, goals, motivations, aspirations, different scenarios that they work in, and things like that. When you look at both of these together, if nothing, it at least ensures that you've covered everything the user expects from a certain design. And because you've got the persona bit in, you may actually be able to add value, which is a step forward from not just what the user expects, but what the user is not expecting but needs, or what the user has never imagined but is actually going to add so much more value to them and so much more impact to their lives. To do this, here's a little worksheet. I forgot to put the QR code and I just remembered it now. So you can take a screenshot of it, and if you ever need a copy of it, I can share this worksheet with you all. Now I'll talk about how I use this. So I am imagining this to be an A4 sheet. I usually work on papers and I love my pencil. So I start with this area as my area for creating my wireframes and my designs and my concepts. So what I usually do is on the side of it, and I don't know why, but I always write it on the right. I never do it from left to right. It's weird. So start writing on the one side, whichever you're comfortable with. Put down the tasks of the user. What are all the tasks that they have to do while going through a certain flow or this specific page or this action? Then write down what are the elements of design that you need for those tasks to be executed. So for example, if you're designing a table, you're going to require filters, you're going to require sorting, you may require a search, you may require multiple action buttons, or you may want to club that into one. Then you may also require something for, I don't know, selecting a row, deleting it, and X, Y, and Z. So just see what all elements of design do you really need, and start just listing them down. What it does is, while you're also looking at your tasks and the elements, it ensures that even by the slightest chance, you don't make a human error and you don't miss anything critical. This is a great way of, one, staying on top of what you need to design. And second, self-evaluation at each point. So it should not be that you go to somebody and they're like, hey, you know what, you missed la 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 la. So it's a great way to put that down. And even when somebody is reviewing it with you, right? Or if somebody wants to look at it, you can always go like, okay, presentation style. These are all the tasks that are available for this user. These are all the small elements or components that I needed for this. And these are the emotions I want my users to feel, which is why I've used certain interaction patterns. This is why I've divided this into 5 pages or divided into 2 screens, or I've done X, Y, and Z. So basically, you're going to be able to explain your decision, and you're going to be able to prove that what you've decided is actually well thought through. A lot of times when we present our designs, we ourselves forget what we'd put in and what not. So that's where this worksheet really comes in handy. I don't use it for all the screens, but when I start the flow, I just write it down. It just helps me. And since you've documented so much, it sort of gets a little difficult to remember all the things, right? So just writing it down, going back to your task, going back to your persona, just having a quick look, it sort of helps. And I think that's something that I would suggest you should all try. And please modify this further and share ideas with me on how we can improve this out. And with that is the end of my presentation, where I believe if there's no information, there is no design. And now let's open it up to questions.
Amazing, Sneha. That was an amazing session. Seriously, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure our audience also feel the same. I mean, look at the responses. So yes, let me just quickly share my screen. Could you stop sharing your screen, Sneha?
Yeah. So just give me a second. Yep, done.
All right, give me a minute. So audience, please go ahead and ask your questions. You can ask your questions in the Q&A window, or the LinkedIn viewers can ask your questions in the comments and I'll direct it to Sneha. So Sneha, we have quite a few questions lined up for you, and let's check them out. So the first question is by anonymous attendee, but it's an interesting question. So what should we do when the research data that we have acquired doesn't match with the business goals?
Interesting. Go back to the business and tell them this. That it doesn't match, because honestly, if it doesn't match, then maybe the business also needs to realign their goals and redefine the problem statement itself, because a lot of times this does happen. It's actually very true, where we've also gone out and done our research and we've come back to the business and said, guys, you're trying to solve the completely wrong problem. I'll give you an example. We were designing something for fleet management. And while we were doing that, one of the assumptions were that people will adapt to EV cars very quickly, and they're going to just move on and take these on. But when we went to the research phase and we spoke to a lot of these fleet owners, they said, hey, you know what? We don't want EV fleets yet, because these are the different challenges we have. So we had to change the entire idea, where it's going to be large fleets, to understanding how there's going to be a combination of commercial vehicles and EV vehicles, like normal petrol and diesel vehicles and EV vehicles, in the same fleet management platform, because we were only building it for EV fleet to start with. And we had to speak with the business, and we created MVP1, where we did only for fleet. And in MVP2, we also addressed petrol and diesel cars as a part of it. But of course, we had to plan for it and get the business to agree to it, show them a lot of research material that we had, also get another session of research done. We also did some surveys and things. So I think the best way is to let them be informed. We're like doctors, we let them know that they're unwell, and we prescribe the best medicine. Then it's up to them if they want to get better or not.
Great inputs, Neha. So we'll continue with the next question here. So this next question is from Imran. He gives you a compliment. It's a damn good session, guys. That's what the compliment was. And the question is, just wanted to know, what do these steps and processes sound great? And though these steps and processes sound great and exciting, but what percentage of your clients have actually given you the time and money to do an in-depth research?
I
It's
would
a very
say,
specific question.
yeah, I love the question. It's a very fair one, honestly. So there's a myth, Imran, about the fact that all this takes a lot of time. It doesn't actually. There are projects which have been about a week where I've not had a lot of time for user research. Maybe I've had access to SMEs, but I've still done my desk research because it just helps me. So I would say about 80% allow you to do it. And now in India, at least the awareness is increasing a lot more. So you do get the opportunity to do it, and I did. But it's true that a lot of times you don't. In that case, the best option is go up to an SME, read up well, and it doesn't take so much time. Once you get a hang of it, it will not. So just try it out. It's not that tough.
Right. I hope that answers your question, Imran. So the next question is actually in the chat box, but it's a good one, so I'm going to take that. So Jaswinder asks us, with the fast-paced projects, how can we expedite the learning curve to understand the domain project required before taking the initial steps you called out?
Sure. That's again a great question. Usually, when I start on any projects, I ask them for their BRD, MRD documents, and things like that. I also request the team on the other side to give me a demo or a walkthrough of their concept. So, even before the first kickoff date, because see, again, in fast paced projects, at least one thing is for sure that you have to have one meeting. You can't just start on the design, right? So at least on that first day, I would ask them for sometimes 2 days, sometimes a week, sometimes 3 days, depending on how much time can I take to create my understanding better. What I do other than that is I break my time into thinking time and doing time. So I spend 80% time thinking, strategizing, planning, reading, and I do only 20% time for execution, at least from my perspective. And with my team as well, I use the same principle where we spend about 80% of our time getting everything right and only 20% time for execution. And when I'm talking about execution, I'm talking about the detailed design phase where we have to create a lot of detail interactions and visual designs and things like that. But for the concept phase and my research phase, I use 80% of my time.
Okay. So the next question is from Digvijay. He says, from a novice product manager, could you recommend a text that helps understand the entangling of design work with overall product?
Sorry, could you repeat that? There's a lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a novice product manager, could you recommend a text that helps understand the entangling of design work with overall product?
All right. So suggest a text, he said, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm not very sure of the question, and I love how flowery it sounds. Uh, but I'm not very sure of what to say about it. But what I feel is in context of text, I don't know, but at least in context of how complicated it sounds, is actually not that complicated. It is very, very simple to understand. And if you just want to be very clear as a product manager or as a new PM, I would say I usually prefer writing stories and dividing all the use cases into stories, and not the stories that technology wise we write, but just actually stories. Human A met human B, fell in love, and stuff like that. So I would still write it like that, and that helps me. But yeah, I'm sorry, that's pretty much of what I understood from the question.
Right. So Digvijay, you can go ahead and ask the detailed question in case if you haven't, understood the answer or have more questions, you can connect with Sneha on LinkedIn, like she said before. So coming to the next question, Sneha, there are quite a few questions lined up for you. So, and we are 9 o'clock exact. So what do you suggest we do? We take these questions or should I ask them to connect with you over LinkedIn? How are you for time today?
Sure, let's take another 5 minutes.
Okay, sure, great. So the next question is from Parth. Sometimes while working on the POC, we don't get enough time to do the in-depth research and come up with insights. So in that case, what approach can be taken to create a concept that caters to all the needs and goals?
So in this point, I would say that, see, if you're building a POC and it's a 1 week or a 3 day activity, you will not get all the time to do research. And that's fair because it's just a pilot thing that you're building, right? So in that context, I feel a lot of times desk research, quick understanding of domain, technology, users, competition is a great starting point. And that should help you at least generate some ideas. But at that point, please also ensure you let the team know that this is not in depth and this is not going to work overall. You can tell them that, once you're starting on the project and you start building the different phases of the project, you will need a lot more time to get this through.
Right, so we'll take this one last question, Sneha, from Shreya Saxena.
Okay.
So is there any difference between the Western clients and the Indian ones in terms of approach to problem solving?
You're getting me into trouble, Shreya. I, I would say that I wouldn't say there's a difference between Indian customers and Western customers, but I would say there's a difference between UX mature or design mature customers and less mature customers. So when there's a company, and could be Indian or Western, when they're more mature about understanding the value of design, their approach to problem solving is very different, and it's much better. But when it's a customer who is not convinced or is not bought into the idea that UX can actually solve problems or design can actually solve problems, with them it's very, very difficult because one, they don't identify the right problem. And when you try to do that, there's a lot of back and forth because they don't see value. And design is intangible. So till the time we don't give it a tangible form, it's very difficult to get a buy-in from them.
Absolutely. So Sneha, we'll end this session with this one last question. It's actually very relevant. So your favorite books and resources on getting better at research and also understanding business. Perfect.
Okay, so I would say, okay, I'm going to write a quick post on this and share with you later because now on the top of my mind, you put me in a spot. I can't think of any books. But yeah, I think a lot of it for me was my mentor, Mr. Prasad Batake. I've learned my user research in detail from him, and he's the one who's really taught me the nuances of how to dress, how to sit, how to talk in a user research interview in very, very detailed terms. So I think he's my resource. But other than that, yes, I will share a few good ones that I like after this session.
Great. Thank you so much, Sneha. Guys, in view of the time constraints, we will have to end the Q&A here. Thanks for the participation, audience. Love the enthusiasm, and the credit definitely goes to Sneha for this. So for any further questions, you can connect with Sneha over LinkedIn or other mediums. We have thoroughly enjoyed having you with us, Sneha. It was an amazing session and it has been a complete pleasure. Please accept this certificate of appreciation from the Institute. So the
Thank you so
QR
much.
code on the certificate will take you to a dedicated Hall of Fame page created with you with the recording of the session. So please
Wow.
share it with your network and we will do the same. We will share this webinar on our YouTube channel and all other social platforms. And we are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and amazing insights drawn from years of research and experience in the industry. And I'm certain that our audience will definitely benefit from the methods you suggested and get ahead in their career. Thank you once again for joining us, Neha.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Right. And audience, thank you for joining in. It was great interacting with you all. Do not forget to register for upcoming webinars, which is tomorrow. With that note, I end tonight's session. Happy learning and stay skilled. Have a great night.